Well, our expectation here is for the Minister, Gravel, and or the Premier Wynn, to start pulling the stakeholders together. We've heard a number of times from them from different sources, including their public comments, that they're open to some discussion to other options about other than divestment. And what we're seeing and what our sources are telling us, inside government and outside government, is that nobody's working on an option. And we had put out an option back about 8 months ago in terms of the New Deal about some suggestion that if divestment was on the table, here was an option to look at. The government is saying now divestment, there are other options other than divestment. So what is their plan? And include us in part of those discussions. They have the Minister's Advisory Committee is struck. But from what we understand from that advisory committee is that they're just supposed to provide some comments. And really what we're looking for is a real serious discussion about options to divestment. How can we make Ontario Northland the organization that it was and the organization that it should be for our communities, for our customers?
Brian, I see the urgency on this end, but what about getting urgency on that end?
Well, this is where we're trying to get some attention to the Premier. We've been told that this is one of our top 10 items that she'd like to get put some attention to, and I suspect she's probably at this point a little bit preoccupied with some by-elections. But we want to continue to remind her that there is rest of the province north of Highway 7. And Ontario Northland is a large part of that. And so this is where we're trying to build some urgency for them as well, or some pressure on the government to say, listen, you continuously tell us that you're going to engage or explore some kind of options, but that's not happening. And we have 1,000 people that rely, either retirees or active employees, who rely on Ontario Northland, and then we have all the customer base and everything else that relies on our services. So we want to get their attention on this matter, and hopefully send out a public plea to the Premier that there is no preconditions to our discussions. If they want to talk about the collective agreement structure, we're prepared to talk about that. If they want to talk about service levels, we're prepared to talk about that. We want to make sure that the message is not filtered through the bureaucrats to the Premier and to the Minister. That we are not only talking about one item, we're prepared to talk about everything that's on the table.
Why do you think they don't take your calls, Brian?
Well, I think really it goes back to a long-standing perception by the government or by the people who work in the various ministries that the only thing the union is interested in is about more jobs and about more union dues. And we've never been about that as Ontario Northland. We're about providing service to our communities. That's what we're about. We provide service where no other commercial organization operates a service. And that's the message that continuously gets lost once it starts making its way into Queen's Park. So that's why we're.
Is the New Deal still on the table?
In terms of the New Deal, that's certainly up to the government. It looks now like the mining sector itself are pulling back from exploring the Ring of Fire. That may be 7 or 9 years out. Certainly, we're looking about today, tomorrow, and next year. So that's we're not saying it's got to be a precondition for us to come in and we're going to talk about this, but it's certainly not off the table.
But so it wasn't a publicity stunt because it seemed pretty splashy and then it just seemed to disappear.
No, it's not a publicity stunt. But the problem we got is that from the government folks, from what we're hearing is that, and from my meetings with them, because it did prompt a number of meetings in October, November, December. But really, it was just this was some kind of union scheme. But it's not. When you look at it, really, it makes a lot of sense. But so we're not going into our meetings with the government or anybody else to say, listen, this is the only item we want to talk about. We want to talk about how do we continue to provide service, improve the services that we're providing to our customers in Northern Ontario.
If today's call doesn't work and they don't listen to you, what do you do next? Do you go to Queen's Park?
Well, we've been to Queen's Park a number of times. We've met with some ministers and some staff, and in fact, Premier Wynn said in a reply back to me that she was going to instruct the Minister of Northern Development and or one of his staff members to contact us. That hasn't happened. So, there's by-elections where there may be a provincial election. There's other things we can do. Billboards and radio ads seem to get their attention, but we want to work within the structure. We believe that there's a lot of advocates in Northern Ontario who believe that Ontario Northland can continue to play a strong role in this region, and we're going to leverage those advocates to try and get pressure on the government to get this thing rolling along.
How can you talk collective agreements if it's not negotiation time?
It is actually negotiation times, yes. So the agreements for a large number of our contracts expire in December of this year. So I think there's about 5 or 6 collective agreements. The open period begins in September, so we're only talking 30 days, 35 days from now. So we're kind of in that zone anyways.
So it's a good time for you guys to be brought to the table.
It's a good time for us, and it's also, for some reason, we want to make sure that is not seen as a barrier to the government to say, listen, we don't want to start talking to them because collective bargaining may get in the way, it may not get in the way, but we're prepared to do it all wrapped up into one structured purpose. Now, we certainly, it doesn't mean we're going to allow the governments to gut our collective agreements, but with a strong long-term business plan, we're prepared to, and we have demonstrated over the years that we're prepared to make changes to our agreements. It's in the best interest of our members and best interest of the communities.